You are listening to the Bat Flip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damon here with my co-host, Matt. We are coming to you on August 31st of 2021. We're going to bring the division breakdown back, get you kind of in where the playoff races are and the division standings going into the month of September, right before rosters expand and we get down to the really crunch time of like 30 games left. We're going to fill you in on the series that we highlighted last week and how those went. Look forward to a couple big series that we have going on this weekend, and then we'll jump to Players of the Week. But before we jump into all that, let's bring in Matt. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Had a pretty good week so far. I'm just, I want to extend my well wishes out to all the folks in the down on the Gulf Coast where the terrible hurricane came through this week, and we've been getting a lot of rain up here in central Alabama from that, but obviously nowhere near what happened on the coast. So, rough week down there, and hope everyone's if someone comes across this from that area, I hope they're safe, and hope everyone's families are safe down there. So definitely a bad situation, but yeah, and just in my neck of the woods, it's been pretty good. College football starting. I'll be down in Auburn this weekend at the first football game, so that'll be fun. And it's gonna be fun coming up. Exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. With the definitely our prayers to everybody down there in the Gulf Coast. It's a scary situation. I've been keeping up on and just not so much about what I don't know everything that's happening there, but just from the media outlets and stuff, it seems pretty damn scary. And I'm so thankful that I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. But who's Auburn playing this weekend?
They've got Akron this weekend, so it's a pretty good tune-up game, and we don't play a real big game for the first 2 weeks. The third week we play at Penn State, so that'll be the first real big game.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for some college football to come back. It's I think the best football we got.
Yeah, you should go see LSU play. They play at UCLA this weekend, so.
Not this weekend. I got some stuff going on this weekend,
I hear
but
you. I hear you.
well, let's jump into this division breakdown. We'll start in the AL East, where we got the Tampa Bay Rays leading this division by 7 games over the New York Yankees, who have now overtaken that second spot from the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, so AL East, somehow Tampa Bay is just keeps winning, and honestly winning by a lot. Yesterday, I think they won 6-1 against the Red Sox. Today, they're winning 7-1. Last check, and then the rest, they got 2 more games against the Red Sox as well. But I mean, that team, it's just got a lot of good pieces. Brandon Lau's playing like Brandon Lau did last year. Ever since the start of June, he's been incredible. Wander Franco has been as advertised, if not better. We were just talking before the show that I don't think either one of us realized until hearing something that he has a 30 game on base streak, which is pretty incredible, rookie. And he's cut his strikeout rate under 15%. I mean, he's the real deal. I mean, he's showing a little bit of power, and he's playing a good shortstop. So what a fantastic what a fantastic job by Wander Franco and the Rays in general. They're just doing what they do. Good starting pitching, good bullpen work, kind of a whole a whole committee approach to pitching, and even without their best pitcher out there, Tyler Glasnow. I mean, they've just been able to keep it going. So impressive stuff there.
Yeah, you could even make the case that they're probably without their best 2 pitchers. We forget a lot that Yanni Chirinos isn't pitching for them this year, and that he underwent Tommy John last year. And that's on top of trading Blake Snell and Charlie Morton, which we've talked a lot about so far this season. But the Rays just find a way, and it's pretty dang shocking, especially this Wander Franco 30 game on base streak. I didn't realize it until just a couple days ago that he had this streak. And then looking at it, he's just 20 years old. Like, we knew he was going to be good, but I didn't think he was going to be like this good already. Like, and just the room that he has to grow still, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that his plate discipline's already there. He's just going to grow into a little bit more power. So I think he's going to end up being like if Juan Soto played shortstop. Like that's the kind of player that you could see Wander Franco end up being, which is, I mean,
Absolutely scary.
yeah, that's scary. So,
Yeah.
um, good for the Rays. You look down in this division, and this is that one division in the American League where there's really four good teams. The Orioles, let's briefly mention, they had an 18 game losing streak, I think is what it ended at. So that, which was almost historic, I believe the record is 23. So they got close to the record, but then they beat the Angels. Ironically, they beat Shohei Ohtani on the mound, which is interesting. That after all those losses in a row, they were able to beat Shohei. But the Orioles had that long losing streak in there. Historic, obviously, they're in rebuild mode, so they probably don't even care. Um, but then you got the three teams battling in the wild card. I mean, 7 games back for the Yankees right now, probably insurmountable. Maybe they could catch the Rays if the Rays just went ice cold, but you got the Yankees, Red Sox, and Blue Jays all there with good records. And right now, it looks to be like the Yankees and Red Sox are the two teams that are really duking it out for that first wild card, and then the Red Sox, you're going to have to hold on for that second spot, which they've got a pretty comfortable lead on that right now.
Yeah, the thing to watch out for with Boston, especially over this next couple weeks, is that they've recently started battling with a bout of COVID through the organization, and I think they're down. I think I saw today it was eight people, and 7 of them have been players that they're getting ready to get down. And actually, just today, Xander Bogaerts left the game with a positive test, so it's going to be a big shot for them. Toronto's right behind them in this division. They've had their own little battles this week. They ended up DFAing Brad Hand, who they just acquired less than a month ago at the trade deadline. He had been terrible. I think something like a 7.32 ERA for him. So they DFA'd him. He's out for there. They did get George Springer back, I believe, yesterday. We had talked how big of an impact he had on that lineup before. And then he went back out. He's back healthy again. Seems like Vlad Guerrero is starting to hit like he was earlier in the year. He had a little bit of a struggle patch there in a little bit. But one of the feel good stories for the Toronto Blue Jays, we've talked about him a lot throughout the year, but that's Robbie Ray. He actually set the MLB record for most strikeouts through 1,000 innings with 1,241, past Yu Darvish, who had 1,222 previously.
Yeah, Robbie Ray is such an interesting pitcher. He's had a couple of years where he looked pretty elite. 2017, 162 innings, a 2.89 ERA, which was really solid. Year after that, he had a 3.93 ERA, but he's a guy who everyone's always been puzzled as to how he's not better than he is. And you look at a lot of it being walks being an issue. I mean, 2018, 12 strikeouts per nine, but 5 walks per nine. 2019, 4.5 walks per nine. Last year, in the shortened season, and in a season also in which he was traded, he had a 7.8 walks per nine, which was insanely bad. But this year, he's cut down by over a full walk per 9 innings, his walk rate to the lowest of his career, 2.2. Um, and he's kept his strikeouts up too. So, this is a situation where Robbie Ray finally starting to show a little bit of that control that he's lacked his entire career. And if that comes, look out, because with those strikeouts, I mean, that's he's looking pretty impressive if his control can remain where it has been this year. And you look at him this year, 2.71 ERA. His peripherals don't quite back up 2.71, but they back up a low threes ERA, 3.4 wins above replacement. He's been durable. Um, Assuming that he's healthy for the next few weeks, probably 3 or 4 starts from now, he will have eclipsed his career high in innings pitched this year. Um, and he's been much more efficient, and he's having a career year right now, and I think there's no reason to believe that maybe he could continue what he's done this year, into 2022. And what a great signing by Toronto before the season, because I was questioning it when that happened.
Yeah, and he's always been one of the most frustrating pitchers to watch. I watched a lot of him when he was with Arizona, and there would be games where he'd come out and in 5 innings he'd strike out 11 people, but then he'd have 4 walks or 5 walks in that time span. And when he's on, he's virtually unhittable. I mean, that the stuff is that good, um, and he's been able to find that command in Toronto, which is really really exciting because one of the most electrifying pitchers to watch when he's on. So
Yeah, and when you talk about one other point on the Blue Jays, they have the top two players in baseball in wins above replacement this year, in at least in batters. So the fact that they're in sitting there in fourth place right now, although they do have a good record, they're probably the best fourth place team I've ever seen. Um, it's pretty remarkable that they are as good as they are, and with some of these players, and aren't, at least in the wild card. I mean, they're still in the hunt for it, but they're not in the wild card, and that's not even to mention a couple other really good players like Bo Bichette, and of course Springer has been injured a lot, but he's also there. So, um, you know, Marcus Simeon and Vlad Jr. are probably my front two guys in the MVP voting for the American League outside of Otani, who obviously I think is right now number one. But um, it's pretty crazy to me that uh, with Vlad Jr., Simeon, but Bichette, those three guys putting up with the seasons that they've put up, and a pitching staff that's really not all that bad because I mean, like we just talked about Robbie Ray, and they've got Hyun Jin Ryu. I mean, they've got a couple of pretty good pitchers there, and then they've got some depth pieces in that rotation too. Manoa has been pretty good this year. It's hard to believe that this team's not better than they are. So I guess with the Red Sox COVID issues, they're 4.5 behind the Red Sox. They could maybe catch the Red Sox. Already, obviously, they're just a couple games behind the A's, so that's definitely attainable. But they could still make the playoffs, but it's going to be really tough for them, and they're going to need all hands on deck and all those guys to be healthy. But really disappointing that a team that has the two top players and wins above replacement for hitters in the league, and then as we talked about, have a couple other good, really good guys, and as we talked about, have those a couple nice starting pitchers too. Um, Kind of hard to believe that they're not like at least a wild card team. So
yeah, I mean, I think we both had them. I think you had them finishing second in the division. I had them third in the division, preseason. So it's definitely been a disappointing year for what we had, thought of the Blue Jays. But who knows that, like you said, they could still make a run at the playoffs. It will be tough, but it's still an attainable mark for them.
no doubt.
But let's go ahead and move over to the AL Central. This one won't nearly be as long as the AL East because the Chicago White Sox still have a 10-game lead in this division. Nobody's going to catch them. Pretty much for the White Sox, it's just get ready for the postseason. What they can do is try and figure out what the heck happened to Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah. So the White Sox are, obviously by far the best team in this division. Obviously the other team sold at the trade deadline. I do want to, continue to shout out the Tigers because their record's a lot better than a lot of people expected it to be this year. They're 8 games under 500, but this is a team you're thinking will maybe lose 100 games, and they've had some good performances from some of their young pitching stepping up, like Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize, a couple of their young guys. Matt Manning has been called up. He hadn't pitched all that well at the big leagues, but he's started to at least get his feet wet. Um, they've had the Miguel Cabrera chase for 500 home runs. It's been interesting. They've been an interesting team. Um, some fun performers like Akil Badu. So you look at the Tigers as a team that I really like what they've done this year, and with that farm system that they've got right now. Um, I feel like they've got a chance to start to, take the next step here in the next couple of years, assuming that they're able to continue building off of what they have right now. And then, I like what they've done. So you look at the Twins, they sold at the deadline, such a disappointing year for them. The Royals are kind of exactly what you expected that they would be. um, they did a little bit to stay kind of competitive, but they definitely didn't do enough to actually be good. So, I mean, they're kind of where you expected, and then Cleveland is right in that middle ground right now. So we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued by by the four teams in this division outside the White Sox. And then you talk about Craig Kimbrell, and I mean, it's just unfortunate that unfortunate that he hadn't been as good with the White Sox. But I don't think, I don't know. I don't know what the deal with Kimbrell is. I know that there's been a lot of talk that he doesn't like pitching in non-save situations. I mean, my opinion's always been suck it up, but um, for whatever reason, he just struggled badly in that situation. So we'll see what happens with Kimbrel. I'm sure he'll probably get going again. It's probably just a little blip on the radar, but for a guy who's been as inconsistent as he has been the last few years, although he's been so good this year, it is a little worrisome for the White Sox.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially being their big prize at the deadline. They really wanted to create that dynamic bullpen with Kopech, Crochet, Bummer, um, Tapera, Kimbrel, and Liam Hendricks, and I mean they haven't been able to get that ball to Liam Hendricks with the lead at the end of the game because of the struggles Craig Kimbrel has had. Um, but like you said, I expect him to turn around at some point and get it going. It is interesting though that his stats between non-save situations and save situations, the disparity that there actually is in those numbers, although they are small sample sizes, especially this year. Um, it's really surprising. But like you said, good year for the Tigers. I mean, I didn't expect them to be nearly this good. I think I had them even finishing the worst in this division. Um, yeah, I had them last in the division. I think we both had them last in the division, actually. So good year for them. I think they've started to see a little bit of those, young pitchers like you talked about. They're developing right into good major league pitchers. I think they found something that they like in Jonathan Scope as a veteran presence for a lot of their younger guys. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do this offseason if they're going to try and progress to be more of like close to a 500 team this next year. I expect Minnesota to make some bigger moves this offseason, probably go into more of a rebuild mode than anything. Um, and then Kansas City's right there with them. But
Yeah, and I think this will be an interesting month in this division to kind of look and see, what things are going to look like for the future because you're going to have although the rosters are limited for September now, you are going to have a few September call-ups. You could maybe see a couple of the Tigers pitching prospects outside of Mize and Skubal. Matt Manning, you could see a couple come up. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Maybe a guy like Nolan Jones for the Indians or something. But um, I think you look at those four teams there, and I think there's a lot to be said. The rest of the year, a lot of development time to happen, and obviously, when it comes to this division, outside of the White Sox, where are they going to be seated in the playoffs? Are they going to be the number two, number three, number one? What are they going to be? I think that's a really important finish out for a couple of those other teams because um, for development time, see where they stand go into the future. Because outside of Chicago, this division is going to be wide open, and who knows what's going to happen. So.
absolutely. Let's jump over to the AL West, where we got Houston now leading this division. They've pulled away to a 6-game lead over the Oakland A's, with Seattle not far behind Oakland, only 2.5 back of them, and 8.5 back in the division.
Yeah, so I think that this division's going to belong to the Astros. I just think they're the best team, all around bullpen, starting pitching, and obviously that filthy lineup they have. Um, but really interesting battle for second place. The Mariners are way better than we thought they would be this year. um, the A's are pretty good, and it'll be very interesting to see who gets that second spot. And depending on what the Red Sox do, like we were talking about with their COVID issues, and um, they have I think 7 players in the COVID protocol right now, including two or three starters in that lineup. So you look at that, and maybe they maybe they get cold for a couple games, and if they do, I mean, both Oakland and Seattle are kind of lurking. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm just so impressed with what Seattle's done this year with a lot of guys that, like we talked about last week. We talked about Ty France a lot. Um, I mean, it's just a team that has a lot of guys who weren't especially highly thought of that have turned into special talent for them, and they've got a great farm system as well. You talk about Kellenick just came up this year. They also got Julio Rodriguez, the outfielder that'll be coming up in the next year or two. A few of those pitchers, Emerson Hancock, Logan Gilbert, who's pitched some at the big league level this year, both top 100 prospects. I mean, there's a lot to like about the Mariners' future, especially with the job that they've done this year. So, um, very very nice there. Although I think the final standings will end up being the order they're in now. To be honest, at the end of the season. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting offseason for Seattle. Barring whatever happens with the CBA, and if we actually get a normal offseason. But with them showing as much promise as they have this year, they're probably going to be one of the most fun teams to watch because we know that if Jerry Dipoto sees an area that he wants to improve and that will help the team, he'll absolutely make it. He's notorious for making close to 15 trades almost every offseason, no matter how big or small. He's a wheeler and dealer, and he's a guy who's not afraid to make the big move. He was the Angels general manager for a long time when they made a lot of their big moves. Um, Although they didn't work out, but the point of being that he will make the move if he sees it necessary.
Very
And like,
aggressive, yeah.
yeah, and this Seattle team is set up for that. If they can get another good starter in there, add another piece to that lineup. Like you said, they're going to get Julio Rodriguez soon. You mentioned Logan Gilbert, who's up now. Emerson Hancock should come up, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after that. George Kirby is another one you didn't even mention. He could probably be up next year as well.
Noel V. Marte.
Noel V. Marte could. He looks like a stud shortstop prospect, although I think he's still only like 19, maybe
Yeah, he's a
20.
few years. These guys are a few years away, but they've just
Yeah,
got so much prospect capital right now. Whether that ends up being at the big league level or trade capital,
right.
and so that they just got so much right now, and I think that's important to look at because whether it's next year or 2 years from now. I mean, this is a Seattle team that right now is 8 games above 500 with the current roster. I mean, just trickling in some of these young talented guys, getting them a little bit of getting them a little bit of seasoning at the big league level, and then 2 years from now, I mean, I think a lot of their team's going to still be around. I mean, they've gotten some young guys already. People forget last year the rookie of the year came out of Seattle and Kyle Lewis. So,
And he's not even
and
playing right now.
nobody even talks about him. He's not playing right now. So, there's a lot of talent there. So it's just one of those situations that I think you look at a team that in the future, I mean, they're going to be the next team in this division, I think, because Houston's been really good this year, but they also are losing more players. I mean, Correa is going to be gone soon. Altuve's aging a little bit. Um, they've got some good young guys too, like Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker. But I mean, they're not a incredibly they're not an incredibly young team in their pitching too. I mean, you're going to lose Greinke. I mean, um, Verlander, we don't know if he's going to come back, from Tommy John. And if he does, we don't know if it'll be with Houston. So, um, I think, and obviously they've been good on the mound this year, anyways, without Verlander. But still, you're going to lose a pretty good bit. And I think that the Mariners are going to keep getting better. And and Oakland is, I don't know if Oakland's really going to get better, but they're already pretty good. And I think Oakland's going to be about what they are this year every single year. They're going to be pretty good, not like dominant, but good. So.
Yeah, they'll just find a way. But I absolutely agree. I think the Mariners are the kind of the team, the future of this division to watch for.
Yeah, and one other note in this division, there's been a lot of talk this week that, obviously the Angels are out of it. They're 13 games back at the division. At least I think they're like 8 or 9 games out of the wild card, so they're out of it. But um, a lot of that having been due to injuries this year. But there's talk that Mike Trout probably doesn't come back this year. They're just going to go ahead and shut him down since they're out of it. So that's just another thing that to bring up because it sounds like the best player in baseball, at least most people's opinion. I guess there's some people who are gonna give that crown to Otani now, but I think Trout's not gonna be back for them this year, and hopefully he'll be fully healthy and ready to go next year. So
Yeah, hopefully. But let's jump over to the NL East now, where we got the Atlanta Braves leading this division by 3.5 games over the Philadelphia Phillies. And with the Mets' recent slide, they're now back to 6.5 back in this division.
Yeah, so this division, I think, is outside of maybe the Chase and the NL West. I think this is the most interesting division in baseball. You've got the Braves, who took advantage of a weak schedule for a few weeks and won a lot of baseball games in those couple weeks. Um, they took a pretty commanding lead. It was up to 5.5 at one point, but now they've hit the toughest part of their schedule. They had the Yankees last week, as we talked about. They had the Giants this past weekend. They have the Dodgers from yesterday through tomorrow, and then they have four against the Rockies in Coors. So it's a Braves team that has hit a really difficult part of their schedule. And while that's the case, they still have a 3.5 game lead, but the Phillies have hit a super easy part of their schedule. They have Washington from yesterday, I think, through Wednesday. Then they have Miami this weekend. So it's very interesting to see how these two schedules, if the Braves have built enough of the lead when they had that weaker part of the schedule to survive this super difficult part, because pretty soon the Braves schedule does go back to being a little bit weaker again. They do still have more games against some of the bottom feeder teams like the Diamondbacks. Um, and they got more games against the Marlins, and but this division could very well come out of the last week where the Braves, Phillies, and Mets all play each other. The Mets are still 6.5 back. I really don't think the Mets are gonna catch up, but um, interestingly, the Mets are making headlines regardless of being 6.5 back and under 500 for other reasons this week. So one of the goofier stories of the year, I think.
Yeah, so basically, the first sign of this was on August 6th, the game against the Phillies. Javier Baez hit a single to left field, and then him and Francisco Lindor kind of gave a thumbs down signal. And they've kind of been doing this. They were injured, but then as they've been coming back, they've both been doing this and kind of making it a team ritual. And I believe it was on Sunday, was it? When at first they asked
The
about it.
last couple days, I don't
Yeah,
remember which
it was
day.
like Saturday or Sunday. They asked, excuse me, they asked Baez about it, and he pretty much said that it was a thumbs down to the fans, that when they were booing the fans at that point, because when they do bad, the fans boo them. So when the team does good, they want the fans to know that they're going to boo them back. And pretty much say, like, you booed us when we did bad. Well, when we do good, we're going to should boo you guys because we don't care. Um, and obviously that pissed a lot of the fans off.
Pissed
It
everybody
it
off.
pissed the owners off. It pissed the higher ups in the team. A lot of the players still weren't even happy about it as well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it myself. I'll admit it. I don't think it's a good look at all either. Like, the fans, they are invested in a team and they have an emotional connection to that team, and they want you to know, like, hey, you're doing bad. Like, we're going to we're going to let you know about it. If you do bad at your job, does somebody let you know that you're doing bad about it? Most of the time, yeah. This is just on a bigger stage, and especially for a guy, like, we know New York is even tougher than most places in media world, probably the toughest. To be making waves like that and started, it wasn't, he hadn't even been there for a week when he started doing this. um, I don't think it's a good look for Javi Baez, and even for Francisco Lindor, who's Baez can leave at the end of the year. Lindor's locked in for 10 years, and he was a part of this too. So
Yeah, so here's the deal. I have a couple opinions on this. My first opinion is that I think that the fans in New York and Philly and in different places, I think most notoriously in New York and Philly, with both the American and National League teams in New York, but um, they're notoriously bad about booing the team if they do anything wrong. Like if they mess up at all, they have one bad game. I mean, they could be on a 15-game winning streak, and if they have one game where they lose, they're going to boo the team. I mean, that's just the way it is, and I don't especially like that. I've never been a fan of just booing all the players, but at the same time, as a player, if you're, Baez or Lindor, and of course I've never been in this situation, so I don't, obviously I don't know what it's like to be booed when you go up to the plate as at a as a home team, but um, you know, I think it's pretty soft of them to act this way. And I mean, just doing the little thumbs down thing, nobody would have known about it. He didn't have to come out and say, "Oh, it's because the fans are being mean to it." No, you don't have to come out and say that. You can do it, and it could be a private joke between you and Lindor and whoever else was involved in it. But um, you could just say it's some goofy little thing we've been doing. I don't know. But anyways, I think it's pretty crazy that most successful players who have been in this situation have said, "Yeah, I played like crap. I deserve to get booed. Like, I'm going to try to play better." And I think at the same time, these fans booing, obviously the players want to play better, want to play well more than anybody in the crowd wants them to play well. Like, but at the same time, like, it just feels like a cop out and an excuse for playing bad. And it sounds like you're worried more about what the fans think than about playing better. I mean, you look at Javi Baez. This is a guy with I think a sub 90 WRC plus over his last 1,000 plate appearances, and he thinks he's a superstar. Like, he's asking for $200 million. He thinks he's a superstar, and he's been one of the worst hitters. I won't say one of the worst hitters, but he's been a very below average hitter. Although he's still very good defensively, over the past year. I mean, he's not that good. Like, he's okay. And when you watch him swing at a pitch that hits the ground 30 feet in front of the plate. I mean, I understand the fans being upset about that. Obviously, they should have known what they were gotten into because it's well known how poor Javi Baez is at, recognizing pitches. And I think it's just an over aggressive approach as much as anything. But, um, if you're Lindor, you just signed with this team for what, $330 million? And they traded a lot to get you. You signed this enormous extension, and you've got what, a 670 OPS. Like, I mean, I don't, like I say, I don't condone fans booing, but at the same time, these players need to sit there and think, maybe if I played better, the fans wouldn't hate me. The fans wouldn't, I don't think they're pulling against them. I think they're just frustrated. I think it means that they care a lot and they're frustrated. So I don't, like I say, I don't believe in booing the players. I've been to a lot of sporting events. I've been to sporting events where the home players got booed for performing badly. But at the same time, if you're a player, you can't react to that in a passive aggressive way and then come out in your press conference and talk about how the fans are bad. I mean, it's put up or shut up. So um, I mean, I think if you look at these guys, I mean, you're Javi Baez, you're not somebody who's just going to be revered in New York for winning a World Series in Chicago like he was in Chicago. He's revered only because he won a World Series and was, makes some highlight plays sometimes. I mean, he's not a superstar player. So he can't act like he's going to be treated like one. And if you're, Lindor, it's the same way. I mean, you were a superstar in Cleveland. You're not playing like one this year. You're not going to be treated like one. You have never done anything, real successful for the Mets other than create a lot of hype before the season. So, um, I think it's a situation where I hate saying that about these guys, but I think they will improve. I think, especially Lindor, I think he'll end up being really good, but for the Mets. But I mean, you can't just sit there and do that. Like, I think it's I don't know. I think it's just it's a bad look. It's really a bad look.
It really is a bad look, and I've never been one to boo players either. I mean, I'm not a big fan of booing the players myself, but I understand why other people do. But this is just going to set up. It's going to be either really good or really bad for this team now, because either Baez and Lindor are going to go absolutely insane this next month, and they're going to make some sort of like holy moly run, or they're going to be terrible, and the booing's just going to intensify. Like today, we saw it when Baez went up; he was showered with boos, and then late in the game, they were chanting his name, and he got an RBI single, and then scored the winning run from first base on a single to left field, and then everyone's cheering. It's just it's part of the passionate fan base, but at the same time, like I think it's just putting more on yourself. Like maybe that's what Javi wants. Maybe he wants the more attention on him, and maybe that's so he'll play better or something. I don't know, but they should have made it some sort of like inside joke and just said like, oh hey, we were doing it because of this or because of that or some reason. But you could have kept it private. You could have kept it in house about booing the fans, and nobody would have ever known. And this wouldn't even be a talking point at this point. But
Yeah.
because they said that, it speaking of the New York media and Philly media and or fans like that, just the past couple years we've seen instances of it. Giancarlo Stanton, when he went there, he struggled mightily his first 100 to 200 plate appearances, maybe his first year in New York, and they booed him so bad. And he came out and he was like I absolutely deserve it. Like I suck right now. Like I'm not good. Like they should absolutely be booing me. Bryce Harper in Philadelphia came out and he goes, dude, if I was a fan and I was sitting there and I saw that performance that I put out there tonight and what I have been doing, I'd be booing myself. Like I absolutely deserve to be booed. Kenley Jansen, I mean, even though I don't agree with, he's been really damn good. He's been the closer for the Dodgers for many historic things that they've done. He was booed off the mound this year, and after the game, he said he's like, I hate being booed by the fans. Like I don't want to be like, but I also have to improve. He's like, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to work so damn hard that I go help this team win a championship and give those fans something to cheer for. Like that's all you would have had to do instead of
That's the correct response, not fire back at the fans with
right. Don't
passive
insult.
aggressive hand signals and insulting them and talking about how, oh, they should never be booing us. We're the best when you're, sitting there swinging at pitches 30 feet in front of the plate. I mean, that's just my, that's my opinion on it. I mean, fair or not fair, I get it. I mean, I get some people saying, oh, he's only been there a week. He doesn't deserve it. I mean, I don't, I just think that, doing something like that is really, you know, really not a good thing. And then, at the same time, I think, I think the one thing that probably made it worse too was the Mets. Well, first off, the Mets owner coming out and talking about how the team sucked. That didn't
Yeah.
help. That made the fans more like willing to, not that they weren't willing already, but more like, on that train. They bandwagoned off of what Steve Cohen said over online, which I think that's very inappropriate for an owner to go online and start tweeting about how his team sucks and he doesn't understand how they could be so bad. And but you look at the president have coming out talking about having a team meeting and then the players immediately apologize after that. Like, it's obviously a cop out apology. They don't actually believe the apology. They basically said sorry if you got offended, which, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's, if you're if you're these players, I think you should be, you should just use it. You should just ignore it and just start playing better. So, I think that's the end of the day. That's the case. But enough. I think we've talked enough about the Mets here.
Yeah.
6.5 back. You look at the other two in this division. The Marlins keep wasting good pitching performances, which I think we kind of expected. And the Nationals trying to play spoiler. They have several games left against some of the top three teams in this division. So, they might come out. They've still got enough talent to come out and maybe win a series against one of these teams. They still got Soto and um, Josiah Gray's pitched decently well for them since coming over. Kyber Ruiz has, got called back up. They'd like to see what those guys have to offer for them, the young prospects, and um, we'll see what the Nationals end up doing rest of the season. But this division is definitely between the Braves and Phillies, and maybe the Mets if they have a huge run in them. But Braves Phillies, it's gonna be really interesting, and they play in the last week of the season, so it'll be interesting to see if what happens there, and who's able to come out on top in this division.
Gonna be an interesting one for sure. We'll look over at the NL Central now, where this division race is pretty much all but over. Not as interesting as either one of the other NL divisions, but Milwaukee's got a 9.5 game lead over the Cincinnati Reds, who are right as of right now. The Cincinnati Reds are the second wild card team over the San Diego Padres, albeit only by a half a game right now.
Yeah, the Brewers, they've rode that pitching, and honestly, I mean, their offense has been a lot better than I think anybody thought they were going to be. And Willie Adames being a large reason why he's been so good since coming over from Tampa. It's hard to explain how he's just changed his game so much since coming over from Tampa. But the Brewers are far enough out in front that I think they pretty much locked up this division. Um, Cincinnati in second place. Good offense, pretty good starting pitching, and then that beleaguered bullpen. You know, they're a team that they've got to figure out a way to close out some games because they're right there, and I think they ought to be the favorite to win that second wild card spot. But right now, because of their schedule, but they got to figure out ways to close the deal. And then outside of that, I mean, the Cardinals, pretty good record for the Cardinals after a while looking like they were going to kind of fall off and fall back into below 500, but they're still, I think they're what 3 games back of the wild card, so I guess they still got an outside chance. Um, of course, Chicago and Pittsburgh are really bad. Chicago's had some interesting moments. They've had a couple games that where both teams scored over like 12 runs over the past couple weeks, so that's been very interesting for the Cubs. But both of those teams just looking at potential future pieces, potential getting looks at different guys, getting some guys, younger guys, experience, that kind of thing. So um, they're definitely not exactly gonna set the world on fire. Hey, look at the Pirates, 6-4 in their last 10. How about that?
Hey, there you go. Let's get something to cheer about, huh? No, but Milwaukee's kind of running away with, or has ran away with this division, I should say. But you said their offense has been really good, better than we expected. Christian Yelich has really quietly kind of turned it around a little bit. His past month, he's hitting 308 with an 830 OPS. If you look at his last 2 weeks, he's hitting 347 with a 953 OPS. He's not still only a couple homers at that point, so he's not really hitting for the power still, but he's able to slug the ball. He's still driving the ball for some doubles and some triples maybe. And if the Brewers are going to want to do anything in the playoffs, they need Yelich to be that type of a hitter. It just adds another dynamic to that lineup that they've really missed for a couple years with him. Cincinnati, they've surprised the heck out of me. I didn't think, especially with all the offseason moves that they did, that they'd be anywhere close to a wild card spot, let alone leading it over a team like the Padres. It's going to be really exciting to see what they can do. They're, like you said, that bullpen's really, really bad. They're going to have to figure something out for that down the stretch because they're going to need it throughout this last month. St. Louis, they still have an outside shot. As of sitting right now, they're 2.5 out of the wild card. Wainwright's been amazing. They've got Flaherty back now. It's just they're going to quietly do their thing, and they're going to need some luck to break their way to jump Cincinnati and San Diego.
Yeah,
But
you look at the Cardinals, and I think they have some issues outside of what we thought their issues were. I mean, their bullpen has been bad lately, and especially Alex Reyes, and it's really a regression to the mean because I know he was an all-star, but he was flirting with disaster, every time he came out and pitched on his way to being an all-star. And yes, if you keep flirting with disaster, it's going to end up happening at some point. So, that's tough for them. But and you talk about the Reds, and I mean that's a team that it's a lesson of that shortened season and small sample size last year. I mean, the Reds had some guys underperform last year who are playing really well now. I mean, guys like Joey Votto, Nick Castellanos, after the first couple weeks last year, underperformed most of the year. Those have been two of the best hitters in baseball. Jesse Winker battled injury a lot last year. He's had a great year. And then you got a couple of young guys, Stevenson and India, who have played extremely well. So it's just a lesson of maybe being patient with some players who have a really good pedigree who just had rough years, and they bounced back, and they still do have some of that pitching staff intact. I mean, they still have Castillo, who after a disastrous start has been pretty good since then, and and to go along with Sonny Gray, who's good, and Tyler Mahle, Vladimir Gutierrez have both been good, and Wade Miley's been incredible this year. So um, it's just a matter they just need to figure out that bullpen, and they would be they probably could have made a couple more moves at the deadline to figure that out, but um, they've got some guys with a little bit of potential back there. They just haven't been able to capitalize on it. So
absolutely, if only they had a guy like Raisel Iglesias this year.
yeah, that was a really bad trade. I didn't understand it
Yeah,
before when it happened, and I still don't understand it. So
neither do I. But let's jump over to the NL West. where we got San Francisco Giants still leading this division, game and a half over the LA Dodgers. It's really a two-headed horse race now. San Diego's fallen back to 14 and a half games out of this division, and like I mentioned earlier, a half game out of that wild card spot.
Yeah, this has been a really fun season, a really fun chase. You got the Giants who such an underdog this season. I don't think too many people expected them to finish above 500. And as we sit now, we're going into September. They got the best record in baseball, and I mean they're a shoe in for the playoffs, regardless of whether they win the division or not. They might not even have to win another game this year, and they can make the playoffs. Um, so you got the Giants and then the Dodgers. Obviously the favorite coming in. They've dealt with some stuff, some guys that have not played. They've had legal issues with Trevor Bauer. They've had some injuries off and on with Bellinger, Seager missing time, Betts missed some time, Kershaw's out right now. Um, Among others. And they're sitting there, and obviously with their depth that they have accrued over the past few years, they're still sitting there with that really good record and in a perfect position to pounce on the Giants. But this weekend they'll play 3 games, and I think whoever wins that series is going to have the leg up on this division. Although the Giants do have a game and a half lead right now, you know, I think that if the Giants win 3 this weekend, and it could go up 4.5 or 5 or something, depending on what happens in tonight and tomorrow's games. I think the Giants end up probably holding on, but I really believe the Dodgers are gonna come back and take this division. Um, their schedule sets up a little bit better than the Giants, and I think they're just a more talented team. Although the Giants have done such a good job this year, and look at the Padres. I mean, it's just been a nightmare for them, a collapse. Pitching injuries have hurt. Pitching underperformance has hurt. Their lineup. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. still hit some home runs, but he's gone fairly cold. Not ice cold, but he hadn't been near as good as he was for most of the first half of the year. He's battled injuries as well. You don't know what to do with Eric Hosmer. The bullpen's struggling at times. I mean, they're starting Jake Arrieta in games, and in 2021, if you start Jake Arrieta in games, it's a recipe for disaster. So, um, the Padres are just going to have to figure out a way to hold on, and they've got a lot of games left against good teams. So they've got to figure out a way to somehow win some of those games and keep pace with the Reds. And then the other 2 teams, I was talking earlier with you, Damien, about the Rockies, and I was shocked to see that their record was as good as it was. A little bit like the Tigers. I mean, 60-71 for this team, really? But I guess their pitching staff's better than people give it credit for. You look at Herman Marquez, Kyle Freeland's been good this year. John Gray's been good this year. Senzatella's has his moments where he can be pretty good. Like their pitching staff, their starting pitching has not been that bad, especially for a Coors starting pitching rotation. So you add to that, their lineup's always going to be at least decent in Coors, and you get them that crazy good home record and crazy bad away record, but um, they've taken advantage of that home field advantage at Coors, and um, their record's not all that bad. So
No, and they just came off of I just watched this team this weekend because they just came off of actually beating the Dodgers in a series, 2 games to.
that was in L.A., wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in LA. They've had a real breakout. Not many people have really noticed this guy, and he's kind of flown under the radar a lot. But Connor Joe is a guy who's had a fantastic season for them. He's batting 280 with an 837 OPS this year. A ton of clutch hits for them. He's played some first base and outfield. He's a guy that has really, really impressed me so far this year. Um, and like you said, that I didn't know that they were only an 11 games under 500 team. I thought they were way worse than that, but that home record is amazing. 43-22 at home, and then you look at that away record, and you're like 17-49, like where that is just such a big difference. Like you would think they're probably in the middle of both of those records, which is sort of where they're at, and it's just if they could find some way to just not be as terrible, at on the road, like this team could make some noise. I mean, they really aren't as bad as what people thought they were.
Yeah, and it's also one thing that you talk about the Rockies and that advantage at Coors. They see the ball travels differently at Coors, not only on the when you hit it, but also on when you pitch. The ball breaks differently. The altitude can play effects on that kind of thing too. So it is difficult for a team like the Rockies to go on the road. And see pitches that break differently than they do at home. And then it's difficult for teams to go to Coors Field because the pitches break differently, and they miss them and they mishit them and whatever because they're just different. And I think that's a situation that you're seeing this year where you have a team that has enough their hitters are good enough to punish you, when but they're teams struggle, that they're more used to the course. They're more used to that environment and that altitude, and I think it helps them win home games. Whereas, I probably lean to their away record being closer. I mean, I don't think they're a 17-49 team, but I think they're better than that, regardless of where they're playing. But I think that that road record's probably a little more indicative of their team. I think that they're probably more of like a you know 20 games below 500 team, probably a 90 loss team type thing, 95 loss team, but still, I mean, the Rockies have been so impressive to be at this record with the pieces that they lost, and what that lineup looks like just name wise. But still, 24 games back of the Giants. The ability to be that with that record in this division too, with those top two teams, how many times they've had to play them, it's crazy. And then the Diamondbacks are there too, and I think they're just kind of trying to play spoiler. Um, they beat the Phillies, one game this weekend, which was kind of funny because they had beaten the Phillies four straight games this year, um, which is really the difference in the NL East right now. So a team like the Diamondbacks can certainly play spoiler when they want to. So
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of we didn't really mention it as throughout the breakdown, but hit on the series that we had this past week. The Dodgers and the Padres played for three. The Dodgers ended up sweeping those three in San Diego. The Braves and Yankees, which you kind of heard Matt freaking out about at the end of the last episode, the Yankees ended up did sweeping that series. The Braves and the Giants in San Francisco. The Atlanta took two of the three for that, and then the Yankees and the A's over the weekend played a 4-game series in Oakland and split that 2-2.
yeah, that Yankees A series, the Yankees had a, I believe it was a 14 game winning streak going into that series, and the fact that Oakland was able to take two of those four games was really impressive to me. So that was really an incredible job by the A's to split that series and keep themselves in the race.
Yeah, and then looking forward, for this week, we got the Brewers and Giants started a 4-game series yesterday. The Brewers won the first game of that. The Braves and the Dodgers started a 3-game series yesterday in LA. The Dodgers won the first game of that, just barely. Braves almost made a good comeback on that one. The Red Sox and the Rays for 4. I believe the Rays won the first game yesterday, and then they were leading this one at the time we were
Yeah,
starting recording this.
it's 8-2 last time I saw it late in
Okay.
the game. So
And then over the weekend, we hit on the big one, the Giants and Dodgers for 3 in San Francisco. Last time they played each other this year. And then we also got the Padres and the Astros for 3, with the Padres fighting for that wild card spot. Um, so some big series, that we had this past week, and then some big ones, that are gonna have playoff impact over the weekend for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, I'm interested in this weekend with that Giants Dodger series. I'm assuming that Scherzer, since he's pitching tomorrow, won't be able to pitch in that series. But
Right.
I would think that Bueller could pitch Sunday, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Okay,
I think it's
it's gonna be
lining
that
up as.
first one would be that bullpen game, right?
I think it's gonna
Or
be
a David
Price.
Price,
I
yeah.
think
So
it's gonna be Price,
and he
Urias,
hadn't pitched.
Bueller.
Yeah, and Price hadn't pitched deep into games very often, so it's more of a. I guess that would be kind of. I mean, Price is a starter, but he probably pitches like 5 innings or something, or 4 innings,
Yeah.
and then turn over the pen. And so that'll be interesting. I think the Giants should probably have their at least Logan Webb. I would assume would be pitching one of the games because he pitched Saturday. So
No, he's pitching Thursday
okay, so he's pitching
against
against
the
the Brewers then,
Brewers.
huh? Okay,
Yeah.
they would have I guess De
Well,
Sclafani maybe.
I think DeSclafani's on the IL. I also think Wood's on
Okay,
the IL, or Wood just went on the COVID IL.
gotcha.
Um, they did get Cueto back. He was supposed to start yesterday, and
Yeah,
he didn't. So I'm not exactly sure.
I bet he starts. He'll probably start this
Gossman
weekend.
probably
Yeah,
would start one.
Gossman will probably starting tomorrow
Yeah,
because he
which would
pitched
make him
Friday against Atlanta. So
available.
but Friday, Saturday, Wednesday to Sunday. Maybe. I doubt it. I doubt they pitch him on three
No,
days rest. But
yeah, no, he probably wouldn't be able. I'm trying to
so
find if Disclafani is on the IL real quick.
he pitched against Atlanta, but he might have gone on the IL after that game. I mean, he got rocked against Atlanta, so I don't know if something was wrong, maybe. But either way, I do think that the pitching matchups probably favor the
No,
Dodgers, but it'll be an interesting series for sure.
he is healthy. He's going to pitch on Friday.
Gotcha. Yeah, I figured he would because he pitched. I mean, I didn't think there was anything wrong with his, with his arm or anything like injury wise. He just got hit around a little bit, but it'll be an interesting series this weekend. Um, and as will these others. The Padres have got to find a way to take a couple games against teams like the Astros. I mean, they have such a tough schedule remaining. They got the Dodgers several more times. I think they still got 6 against the Dodgers, right?
Yep, 6 against the
Yep.
Dodgers. I think they still
So,
have the Giants for some too.
yep. I mean, they've got such a tough schedule in September. They got 4 against the Braves. Um, you know, they
Yeah,
played the division leaders all over the place.
they
So,
got 6 against the Dodgers, 7 against the Giants,
yeah.
4 against the Braves. Oh no,
And that
sorry,
includes
they have
does that include the
4,
suspended
5,
game?
6, 7, 8, 9. They have 10 against San Francisco. My bad.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is
that is
yeah.
including the suspended game, by the
Okay,
way.
I didn't remember if it was going to be a 3 or 4 game series and the suspended game. So it's a 3 game series and the suspended game, and
Yeah,
so that's just going to be such a tough stretch. And with the Reds having games against the Cubs, games against the Pirates, games that's it's one of those things. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued at least um, by the by this division, and I think it's gonna be a fun chase to the end. And I think it's really disappointing, and I think MLB needs to work on their scheduling because I think this is the last time the Giants and the Dodgers play this weekend, right?
yeah, it is.
So I mean, they would be really a lot more fun, at least for an outsider, for the Giants and the Dodgers to play the last week of the season with the division on the line. So, but we're not gonna get to see that because of the scheduling. So. Um, but let's move on. Last thing before we run out of time here. Players of the week. Who was your hitter of the week this week, Damien?
So I'm going to be a little bit biased here. I try usually to avoid that, but I'm going to go with Will Smith, the good Will Smith, the catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers this week. Just an amazing week. 500, average, a 591 on base, an 1167 slugging, 4 homers, 6 RBIs, 5 runs, and a lot of those RBIs and homers were in clutch scenarios. He had a massive one against the Padres in that series to give them a lead late in the game. I believe he hit another one earlier in one of the other games, and then I think he hit one last night too, didn't
I
he?
believe he did.
Yeah, it was like a second decker, which is hardly ever seen in Dodger Stadium. He hit one of those yesterday.
Yeah. It's
Um,
easy to hit home runs when the opposing pitcher's throwing 91
yeah,
right down the middle, like
yeah.
freaking Drew Smiley was. But anyways,
No, the good thing though is that it seems like Smith has taken over the catching share. They've usually like to keep it about a 60-40 between him and Austin Barnes, and now I think this hot stretch, and he's been really good defensively actually. Um, they've kind of given more of the run to Austin Barnes now as kind of the starting catcher, so maybe we'll see, or Will Smith, sorry, we'll see less Austin Barnes in the playoffs most likely.
and of course, the one thing about that too is that Austin Barnes being Kershaw's guy, that you probably with Kershaw being out, you're probably seeing less Austin Barnes from that anyways. Um, But either way, let's move on to my player of the week, and I am going to pick Josh Donaldson. He had a very good week. 7 games played this week. Hit 4 home runs. Hit 440 with a 533 on base. 1.04 slugging percentage. A 309 WRC plus. Put up .8 wins above replacement. Just did a fantastic job. Um, he's a guy who can still really really play it, and maybe a guy who a team takes a chance on as a trade target from Minnesota in the offseason to maybe Minnesota takes on some of that salary, or maybe they can get a little bit of a maybe get a mid-range prospect out of him or a bad contract swap type thing where you could still see Josh Donaldson come out and have some value. Although I think teams are going to be worried about that contract with even though it's only a couple more years with his injury history, especially the fact that he's injured a lot this year again. So, and his age being a part of that as well. So, interesting stuff. Good for Josh Donaldson. Always been a fan. Former Brave. He's actually an Auburn Tiger. So that's pretty cool to see him continue to have success at the big league level. And really good week for him. So. Definitely pulling for him. But who's your pitcher this week?
So I went with a little bit of an oddball on my pitcher this week. I went with Minnesota Twins pitcher Bailey Ober. Um, he's a guy, I'll be completely honest, I found out about from playing MLB The Show. Being 6'9", he's a guy that you can get a lot of people out with. So when I saw him, they got the calls up to the majors this year, made me a little bit more interested in him. He had a really good week this week. 11 innings pitched. Did give up 9 hits, but only 2 runs, 1 walk, which has been a big struggle for him. He's struggled with command a lot, and 12 strikeouts. One of this did come against the Tigers, but the other one was against Boston, who can still be a really good offensive team. So really solid week for Bailey Ober, and a little bright sign for the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Bailey Ober's a guy that I don't really think too many people pay too much attention to, but that's a very good week for him. And hope maybe can see him continue that. But my pitcher I picked was Ranger Suarez from the Phillies. He had 2 starts this week. A 150 ERA over 12 innings. 9 strikeouts per nine, pretty solid stuff there. Which obviously, 12 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. Um, did a great job. Lefty, he was pitching out of the bullpen for most of his career. Started the year pitching out of the bullpen, closed some games for the Phillies, and now with their issues in their rotation, he's become a starter. And he's done a good job as a starter. He's got like his last 2 starts a 150 ERA. Really solid job for Ranger Suarez, and maybe they've found something here. Or, it's possible that it's kind of a flash in the pan type thing too. But um, he was badly needed for Philly, and the fact that he's pitched as well as he has been really good for them. So congrats to Ranger Suarez on his success, and we'll see if he's able to keep up what he's been doing recently.
Yeah, Ranger Suarez, fantastic story. Um, he faced the Dodgers right as he was I think it was his third start out of the bullpen. I think he kept him hitless for like the first 4 innings or something, and he wasn't fully built up. And I think in the 5th inning he started wearing down some, and they ended up pulling him. But he has fantastic stuff. I think he's still developing that third pitch, but he's definitely shown flashes this year that he could be a legit major league starter. And it's just wild coming from the bullpen, going to closing, and then them saying like, you're too good to be a closer right now. Let's throw you into the rotation, and then him just backing that up and being really good still. It's been pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah, no doubt. I do want to make a couple of really quick honorable mentions here of guys we could have picked. We definitely could have picked Robbie Ray, but since we were talking about him earlier, we decided not to. But he had a great week too, with 14 innings and a 193 ERA over 2 starts. So I just wanted to mention that he was definitely on our list. It probably normally would have been the pick, except for the fact that he that we were talking about him so much with that strikeout milestone he had, and then also Sandy Alcantara, but we keep picking him, so we decided to shy away from that. But he had a fantastic start again this week, which I believe no, he did win that start.
Did he?
He won that 1 start this week, but he only had 1 start, even though it was 7 innings with I believe uh, what 12, 13 strikeouts, 1 walk,
Yeah,
like
something like that.
no, 1 run. So um, he's just been really good lately. So we'll see what happens. Interesting stuff to close this season out. September is here, and we're about to get into the. We're definitely well within the stretch run, and we're about to find out who's gonna rise to the top and make that postseason. So very interesting stuff, and I'm excited for this remainder of the last month of the season. You know, 30 and 1 month from now we'll know who's in. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think during the active season, the regular season, and until it ends. This is probably our last division breakdown of the actual
Probably
year
so.
until after the when the playoffs are getting ready to start. We'll run down it one more time, but kind of a sad day for for our division breakdowns. But I'll leave it on one note unless you have anything else you want to say.
I think I'm good. I think it's everyone needs to be excited, and I hope that the crowds are really good for this last. So really entertaining. Really going to be an entertaining month for, especially in the NL East and NL West. Maybe the AL East gets entertaining at the end. We'll see, but it's gonna be a fun month.
All right. Well, to close this one out, what I'm going to say is I'm going to give us a thumbs down for the last division breakdown of the year. I'm going to give that
I
one.
gotcha. I gotcha.
So thank you guys for tuning into this episode of the Batfoot Podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.